This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles. We are live, everybody. Of course, we've got to start, Greg, with the news of the day that everybody has been tracking. Odell Beckham Jr. What have you heard about OBJ and the Patriots?
So what I've heard is the Patriots are in on it. They've had discussions with Odell's camp, but they are not the only team. There are several teams that have had discussions with him. I do not expect a decision tonight. It'll be interesting to see if Beckham sort of pushes this a little bit. It could cause teams like, I would think, the Patriots would get out pretty quickly. I think they're the team that pretty much states their case and says, this is the deal. This is what we're offering you. This is what you can gain by coming with us. Take it or leave it. And they don't want to be dragged out because there were initial reports from like Josina Anderson saying like it could be a couple days or he's going to take his time. I don't think a lot of these teams want him to take his time. I think they want him in the building as soon as possible. I think the Patriots would love to have him on the field against his former team, the Browns, on Sunday. And that's not going to happen if he takes his time. And we're talking it's dwindling weeks now. There's 8 weeks left in the season?
Yep.
And it's going to take him some time to get up to speed and all that stuff. So the Patriots are in it. I can't tell you whether they're the favorite or not. I don't know that. I know that in all my discussions with people around the team, certainly nobody has come close to shooting it down, that they would not have interest, which interests me because normally if they're not going to go full boat into something, then they kind of soft pedal it. But I think they're fully in. I think they realize the type of acquisition that this could how it could help them short term and long term. But yeah, the Patriots are in this.
Any idea how they feel? Not only, if they're in it or not, but do they feel like they have a good chance, a slight chance, a great chance? We know they're at the table, but do they feel good about the chips they have in the pocket?
I think the way I would term it is I think they feel that they have a pretty good chance at landing him. That, considering Belichick, where this team is going, some of the veteran leadership on this team, I think they feel like they're in a good position to land Odell. And I assume their pitch would be convincing. Like, look, we're building something here. And look what we did for Randy Moss, who I'm sure Beckham has talked to. Look at what we've done for other guys that are similar to you. You haven't really gotten a chance to be really well coached, and get consistent quarterback play and all that stuff. We give you a chance to basically write the end of your career. And look, it can be a short-term deal. We can figure some things out down the line and feel each other out. But you coming here is the best thing for your career, whether it's in New England or not. You coming here and showing that you can succeed in our system really benefits you. And I think that's a convincing case. But look, there are other teams like the Packers, the Seahawks, the Chiefs. They can all make very convincing arguments as well.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the teams, and I had a list of 5 that I tweeted out at Nick C Radio earlier today that makes a lot of sense. Some of it's been reported. Some of it's just kind of common sense stuff, Greg. Green Bay, Kansas City, Seattle, New Orleans, and New England seem like the 5 teams that are in this. Maybe there's somebody outside looking in that we don't know just yet that can creep in last second. I don't know if there's a Scott Boras mystery team out there that's involved, but those 5 teams make sense. So with all of that said, let me just ask you simply, do you like
Nick, one thing I did want to mention, one
Sure.
dark horse team for me,
Sure.
the Buffalo Bills.
Sure.
And I don't have any inside knowledge on this, but I know from, sort of watching them while they need to run the ball and pass protection and that sort of thing, they need to figure things out. There is the sense, especially listening to, Chris Sims talk week after week about the Bills. He's been pushing for a while that he thinks they need somebody else on offense. That, while us in New England look at the Bills and we're like, well, they're loaded. They got, Beasley and Diggs and, Dawson Knox is a good tight end. And even their secondary receivers are pretty good. Diggs is really the only difference maker in that group. And teams have taken the offseason to sort of game plan against them. And they've, it's not like Diggs is not going off like he did last year. And all of a sudden you put Beckham out there with Diggs, pretty good. And so that's just one team I would keep an eye on.
It's an interesting team to bring up because you mentioned Kansas City, very similar. If you look at what's going on with both of those offenses, defenses are now playing the cover 2 shell, the 2 high safeties against them, and they're forcing Josh Allen, much like they're forcing Patrick Mahomes, to beat them with everything underneath. Be patient, make the checkdowns and all that kind of stuff. And similar to Kansas City, if you look at Buffalo, they have that one explosive guy in Diggs. Kansas City has the one explosive guy in Tyreek Hill. And we saw on Sunday, Green Bay limited Hill to 4 catches, 37 yards. And there was no explosiveness to that offense for Kansas City on Sunday. And Buffalo's going through some of those same things right now. I would say, though, Buffalo, at least they have Beasley. They do have Emmanuel Sanders. Maybe Sanders hasn't played as well as they were hoping he would. But, Buffalo, when you look at how teams are defending them, it would make sense to have Diggs and then somebody else on the other side like OBJ. That makes it very difficult. Back to my question that I wanted to ask you a minute or two ago. Do you like it for the Patriots? Your personal opinion, should they go after OBJ? Do you like it? Why not, or why so?
I do. I came around on it. I wrote a column this weekend about it, basically stating the case for and against Odell Beckham Jr. to the Patriots. And in the end, I came out for. And I was a little bit surprised that I did because he's not my type of guy. I am not. I don't want to invite the headache, especially since I think I have growing something with this Patriots team, sort of reestablishing who they are. They've won 3 games in a row. You have a young quarterback. Why put more on his plate than he already has? But here's why I came down on I think they should sign him, and I think they're going to make a very hard run at him. I look at more for next year. And I look at this as more of a tryout process to sort of see, because this season, look, could the Patriots make a Cinderella run and be the first team ever to go to a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback? Yes. But history tells us it's not going to happen. So the best you're hoping for really for the Patriots is a strong finish to the regular season, contend for the divisional title with the Bills sort of slipping here, winning a game or two in the postseason, but really building towards next year. When everybody's been in the program, they get a full off season, all that stuff. And I look at next year, the Patriots depth chart for wide receiver. We pretty much know that N'Keal Harry's going to be on. He's going to be a free agent. Are they going to bring him back? I mean, maybe on the cheap if he goes out there and he doesn't have anything. But they're not relying on N'Keal Harry for anything. And then you also have to look at Nelson Agholor. I don't think he's been bad so far. He's been fine. Could they look for better? Could they say, you know what, that contract now doesn't look so great for the production that we're getting? Remember, he signed a 2-year contract, so they can get out of the contract next year.
Yeah.
If they want to. And it would actually save them cap space. So say they go through the end of the season and they think that Agholor is not a great fit, that if they get rid of Agholor, they get rid of N'Keal Harry, all of a sudden you're talking about 2 vacancies at wide receiver. Where are they going to get wide receivers from? They could sign one, maybe. They're not going to go top of the market for a wide receiver. They're not going to draft one that is going to be plug and play. That's really never happened here. So to me, Odell Beckham Jr. serves a purpose for next year, that at least you figure out in these last 8 games, is he a fit? Does he fit with the offense? Does he get the offense? Does he behave himself? All that stuff. So you say, okay, well, now we're going to sign him in the offseason. We have him for next year. And now, he's our number 1. Then you have, Bourne. Maybe you add a slot receiver. Now, all of a sudden, you're really cooking on offense. And so for me, I say yes, mostly for next year. But I definitely want to see what he can do this year.
I'm 100% a yes. And a couple of things about OBJ before I get some of the thoughts from the chat members tonight. Again, we're going live here, Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles. First of all, his time in Cleveland, I don't know how many people in New England especially have paid close attention to what's been going on in Cleveland. It seems to me that the perception of OBJ still lives from his time with the Giants and some of the stuff that he did with New York on the sidelines, like headbutting the net and doing all those kinds of things and getting into skirmishes on the field. Honestly, with Cleveland, he hasn't really been that much of a pain in the ass.
Yep.
He really hasn't been. I mean, from day one when that trade was made, he was preaching about winning, doing things the right way. He had 70-plus catches, I believe, his first year in Cleveland, and then it went downhill. And, he still wasn't an issue in the locker room. He's not a guy over the past couple of years. Of course, he got the ACL, but before the ACL, and even this year after he came back, up until his dad's video on social media, which apparently was, his last shot at being traded. He asked for a trade. They said no. He tried to push himself out. His dad got involved.
Stephon Gilmore should have tried that last
year. Before that point, though, before the end-all, be-all, when he knew he was out of there, he did go along with the program. He wasn't mouthing off too much, if at all. And I don't have much of an issue with a guy who was seen as a top 5 receiver in the game before he got to Cleveland. Now he's getting 2 targets a week to look around and go, I mean, what the hell? Like, it's not as if they were throwing him the ball 8, 9, 10 times. They were literally throwing to him once or twice a game. And I think a lot of receivers, we talk about it all the time, Greg, they're divas. They want the football. That's what they do. It's awesome. It's asking an awful lot from somebody like Beckham to just be okay with 2 targets a week and a catch in 10 yards. Like, that's not how that guy goes. He just turned 29 years old. He wants to get going and produce and win. The second thing I would say is, I've been thinking about this all day. I wanted to bounce it off of you. What is the Patriots pitch? Because a lot of what we hear is quarterback, offensive-minded head coach, winning, that kind of stuff. I think one thing the Patriots, if you look at these other teams, one thing the Patriots might be able to pitch to him is stability. And when you look around, like the Bills have stability. If they're in it, they can do that. Kansas City, even though they're going through some struggles, they've got Reed, they've got Bieniemy, they've got Mahomes, they've got some stability. But when you look at Green Bay, is Rodgers going to be there next year?
Right.
I don't know. When you look at New Orleans, the reports are that Winston is not going to be the answer next year for them. Okay, so who's their quarterback? When you look at Seattle, Russell Wilson's been trying to push himself out for a little while now. So is Wilson going to be there? I mean, I think Belichick's pitch is, A, you come join the culture. You know what we've done in the past, but also we want you to grow with Mac Jones. We know who our quarterback is for the next 10 to 15 years. If you want to build something, not for the next 8 weeks, but for the next 5 years, you build it here in New England. How do you feel about that pitch?
I like it. And to bolster sort of your case for, for Odell and what he went through in Cleveland and about what kind of, player he was and how he wasn't a problem. I mean, when I watched a lot of film this week of him, this is a guy coming off ACL surgery. Remember, he didn't even play the first couple of games this year. He was coming back from ACL. He looks pretty good on the field. And a year from now, he's only going to be better. He still looks very talented to me. He's quick down the field. To me, he has not lost his legs. He makes really tough catches, 50-50 balls. He'll go up and get things and give up his body. I do not see a whole lot of diva in his play on the field, but I think you're right about the pitch for the Patriots. I think it's stability, it's structure. To me, it's mostly coaching. To be like, you've never gotten coaching like this before. Look what we've done for all these other guys. They've all become stars. They've all cashed in off the field. We let you be you as long as you behave yourself, which you have in the National Football League. You've never, really been an issue for anybody other than sometimes you get a little bit restless and you can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. But I think the Patriots make a lot of sense for him. And, if he does buy into the program, I think he could be an essential guy for Mac Jones going forward for, who knows how long.
All right, let's run through some of these chat questions for you or comments and get your feel for it. From Kano, OBJ will get more targets in New England than any other team. Patriots going to the Super Bowl on the low. What do you think about his targets? Because Mike Larry also chats. He says OBJ would be the number 1. Other teams, he'd be the number 2. As part of that conversation that we're talking about, that Belichick, and it's been reported that Belichick has been in contact with OBJ's team. Is Belichick talking targets? Is Belichick talking about, hey, this is your role in this offense, and we know that you weren't getting the footballs? Is he touching that in these conversations, Greg?
Nope, not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, he will do what he always does. Let's get him into the building. Let's get him into the program. I mean, look at when Josh Gordon came aboard. What Josh Gordon have like 5 or 6 routes like his first game. I mean, he's going to have to be brought along slowly. We have no idea how he's going to be able to function in this offense with just 8 games left.
Yeah.
I mean, Nelson Agholor and Kendrick Bourne have been at this since, May and June, and they still haven't come close to mastering what the Patriots system is. I expect him, if he does sign with New England, they will have a package that hopefully, just like Antonio Brown when he came in here his first week, they will have a package of specific plays and how he does with that and how he does with the system and how he does in practice. It will either expand or it won't. He is not coming in here to be a number 1 receiver this season. I mean, maybe for the last 3 or 4 games he could be, but certainly not off the bat. He's going to have to earn what he gets here, just like everybody else. And to me, I think it's an important discussion that we talk about, like where he fits on this team.
Yeah.
At least initially, from my understanding, he's going to be sort of a spot receiver. That they are going to put him out there to put pressure on the defense in certain circumstances, possibly open things up for other players. But really, he's a boundary guy long term. He's an X receiver. That's who he is. That's Nelson Agholor's spot right now. He won't be taking that anytime soon. But, I've heard some discussion about him like, oh, well, he could play the slot for Jakobi Meyers. He can't play full-time slot on this team. I mean, all you have to do, go back and watch this past weekend against the Panthers, how much work Jakobi Meyers as a slot receiver has to do in the running game in this offense. I mean, he has to take on linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks, and he hasn't been very good at it, but this is the same thing Julian Edelman has been asked to do, Wes Welker has been asked to do, Troy Brown. It's a physical position, the slot receiver on this team. Can he play inside like when they go, 3rd and 10 and they're going 4 wide? Sure. But he's not going to be a full-time slot on this team. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk in the chat right now, and you guys and gals can continue to send us chat questions and thoughts. There's a lot of talk in the chat about, Josh McDaniels' play calling, of course. He's always been polarizing, but I would imagine there are some things that they can do with OBJ if he does indeed, decide to join New England. There are some things that you can do with him right away. I mean, there are some things route-wise. Okay, bubble screens, jet sweeps, slant routes, like simple wide receiver 101 stuff. And then, as you said, you can also send them deep out of different positions to kind of stretch the field and hopefully open up the underneath for the tight ends and the running backs. There are some things that you can do. I just wouldn't, if Beckham decides to sign with New England, I wouldn't say, okay, here comes, 10 catches, 150 yards. I think right. You've got to kind of pace this whole thing. Zachary D'Amico says if he's a real difference maker scheme-wise, then you pitch utilization in certain situations against teams that lead to a Super Bowl. So that's, again, utilizing guys. And that's another point I wanted to bring up, Greg, quickly to ask you about. One of the things that we've heard is that OBJ wants an offensive-minded head coach. Obviously, that's not Bill Belichick, but as you've said a lot on this podcast, Josh McDaniels is the head coach of the offense. So if Beckham's looking at Matt LaFleur of the Packers, he's looking at Sean Payton with the Saints, he's looking at Reed with the Chiefs, he's looking at McDaniels with New England. How do you think McDaniels stacks up with those other guys?
No, I think he's right up there with anybody else. And I'm sure, guys like Randy Moss would certainly back that up. And there'll be, plenty of guys that they could talk to that would back up, how good Josh McDaniels is at his job. You brought up sort of, how they would use Odell. One play that stands out from this past weekend against the Panthers where I think he could make a difference and certainly help this team where they're sort of lacking right now is, the strip sack on Mac Jones. Now, first of all, that was poor blocking by Hunter Henry mostly. He allowed the Brian Burns to get to his outside shoulder, and when he had Isaiah Wynn inside, he should have overplayed to the outside, let him go inside where Wynn was there. But in any event, down the field, what Mac Jones had Brandon Bolden, he probably could have just checked it down. But the main person on this route was Jakobi Meyers with Stephon Gilmore down the field. And Jakobi Meyers came open. It was after Mac Jones, got nailed and the ball was going. But, Mac Jones was sitting there waiting there all day for Jakobi Meyers to get down the field and make his break. And it just took way too long. You put Odell Beckham in that circumstance and, all of a sudden you have a play. The same play that that Jakobi ran on the interception, that's a rub route where Jakobi got caught up in it and tried to avoid the guy to avoid offensive pass interference. And to me, Odell Beckham's just a guy who gets to the spot quicker, and you don't have that interception. So, those are two examples that stand out to me where, he could basically walk out. I don't know about the first weekend, but certainly the second weekend. And he would play in a certain package and certain groupings with their personnel. And I think he would help.
And that falls in line with Patrick Fulmer's question, asking if Odell still has the speed. Is he still a burner? You said you watched him on film. His legs look pretty good. Looks like he can get downfield.
Pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say he's, 24, 25-year-old Beckham, but he's still pretty good in my mind. I mean, his legs look like they have good bounce. He gets up when he needs to. I don't think there are any real, physical issues with him. And the thing is he'll be even better next year because, he had ACL surgery last year and, getting that sort of rest, getting that recuperation, playing some, then resting, it's only going to be better next year.
So you've brought up a couple of times this idea of, long-term, this makes sense. My question is that what OBJ wants, right? Like, let's say the Patriots are pitching Beckham. Hey, listen, you get in here, the facility, you get to work with Mac. Mac's the long-term answer. Again, offering him stability, but we want you to be here in 2022. And if we bring you in, we want to bring you in for not just the rest of this year, but also next year. My question is, OBJ, does he want that? Is this a situation where he says, Bill, look, I want to walk into the facility. I want to have some chemistry with Mac. I want to do what I can do on that field and help you guys win. But I want to be a free agent at the end of this season. Like, I want to reestablish my value, and I want another bite of the apple in free agency. I wonder if that's what Beckham is thinking.
Possibly, but if I'm the Patriots, I'm actually open to that. I mean, I just want to sign him through the end of the year. If there's some sort of option, as long as the Patriots have a way out, I'm fine with that. But if I'm the Patriots, I'm not. They already made this mistake with Antonio Brown, with guaranteed money and all that stuff, and at least they got some of it back. But if I'm them, I'm like, look, just come into our program. Help us out for the rest of the year. Let's feel each other out, and then we'll reassess in the offseason. And, I don't think there's a circumstance on any team where Beckham really, even say the Patriots lose out this time, I still think they can land him in the offseason. I would like the trial period, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere. By the time he gets up to speed with a team, there's going to be like 5 or 6 games left in the season. How good is he really going to do where it's going to increase his value all that much? But if I'm the Patriots, I'm interested in, 1 year only, then we'll see. I'm not using a franchise tag because I need to use it on JC Jackson after the season. But I'm going let's just deal with the end of the season, then we'll deal with next season when we get there.
Yeah, before we jump to the Carolina game, because we want to break down that one as well and what happened over the weekend on Sunday. Again, I'm seeing some stuff about diva, diva this, diva that, diva this, diva. And Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of receivers in the NFL are divas. A lot of receivers all receivers want the football. When receivers don't get the football, receivers bitch. Greg has brought this up, over the past several weeks. Nelson Agholor has been bitching like consistently. Mm-hmm. So, if you're concerned that Beckham's going to be this guy who's going to be complaining and bothering Mac Jones, what Greg sees is a little bit of that from Nelson Agholor already. So would you rather have Would you rather have OBJ's talent and him maybe bitching every once in a while, or Agholor's bitching every once in a while and his talent? And I would say again, and we mentioned this for people jumping in right now to watch this live, we covered this a little while ago. OBJ in Cleveland was not really a big problem. He wasn't complaining a lot. He wasn't causing issues through the media. He mostly went out there and kept playing. And he just got frustrated. And I can kind of, understand that. When he is a receiver of his ilk, those guys want the football, man. And if you're not feeding them, if you're giving them 2 targets a week, they're going to get frustrated. And that was not just like a couple of weeks. That's really been going back since last year before the ACL. So I think OBJ understands where he's at. And I think he understands if he came into New England, he would have to get with the program. And so what that entitles is, we know what it entitles.
Yeah, I think that, look, the diva, the attitude thing is real. It never really goes away. A player is who they are. I mean, look, Randy Moss was rough in his other spots before, whether it was Minnesota or Oakland. And then he came here and he was great his first year. And it was great. They made sweet music together. I thought he was pretty good in 2008 too with Matt Castle. I wasn't here. I mean, I was covering the Packers at the time, so I didn't see it up close and personal. But from afar, it looked like it went fine. And then I think was it 09 or 10 that he ended up getting traded.
Yeah, got off the rails there for a little bit. Went off the rails, and
and so it's good. Look, it's going to happen at some point. At some point, he's going to get restless. He's not going to like something. That's why I want the short-term deal to feel each other out. And then the Patriots aren't idiots. They're not going to wed themselves to this guy. They're going to do the same thing that they did with Moss, where when it gets bad, they can get out. But I am not worried about. I know there's a lot of consternation among Patriots fans about. Look, we're building a good thing. Mac Jones, he looks like the real deal. He's got his head on his shoulders. We don't want to mess with that. I wouldn't worry about Mac Jones. Mac Jones can handle himself in the locker room. He was at Alabama.
Mac got swag.
Yeah, he has swag. He was at Alabama with a bunch of different personalities. All of his teammates swore by him. The Patriots still, as of this moment, still have a lot of strong leadership in that locker room. Matthew Slater's still in there. I'm sure he would get involved. Guys would keep guys in check. Josh McDaniels would keep them in check. As far as offensive meetings and stuff like that, I am not worried about Odell Beckham poisoning the whole thing. I'm not. But you need to be smart. And you need to realize at some point in time he is going to get restless. It's just make sure you safeguard yourself for when that happens.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. My only point with the Cleveland time is I thought he was much worse in New York, and it wasn't even relatively close.
Yeah, true.
So, and I think people, when they think of OBJ, they think of his time in New York. They haven't been paying as close attention to his time in Cleveland. Chris Bayless.
Wasn't he pretty good with Tom Coughlin? I think he was pretty good with Coughlin, and then it was
McAdoo. I was going to say the slick-haired car salesman, Ben McAdoo. Yeah. Yeah, that
everybody. Guy. Well, yeah, if that guy coached you, you'd run all over him too.
Chris Bayless says, I doubt we'll have the best money to offer. Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg. This isn't really a money issue. I mean, I don't think any of these teams in the hunt are going to be looking to pay OBJ any kind of big time money. I mean, they're all going to probably be dealing with the same cake as far as that goes. Like if you look at, Green Bay and Kansas City, and I think every team is going to probably have the same, kind of offer, which is, hey man, come in, play, prove your worth. We'll give you whatever, $1.5 million, whatever the vet minimum is, maybe a little bit extra more than that. And if you prove yourself, then we bring you back in 2022, and then we can give you a little bit more money. I don't think this is, and from everything that I've seen, it has nothing to do with money. That has not been reported. He got good money from Cleveland with that restructuring of the contract. He's made like $70 million over the past few years. So, if you look at the money part of this, I don't think any team's worried about it. OBJ, according to multiple reports, people across from what I've seen, everybody is saying the same kind of stuff. He's looking for an offensive-minded head coach. He's looking for a chance to win, and he's looking for a good quarterback that he can play alongside. Those are pretty much the three things he's looking for. No one is really talking about money. All right, so
Yeah.
let's move on. I think we said our piece about OBJ. If something pops up, if anybody has questions, I know you guys are chatting in the chat room. We can get involved with that. But we do a disservice if we didn't pay attention to what actually happened on Sunday. Before I get to the game, I feel like I've got to ask you the question, Greg, about the Mac Jones play. Did you think it was dirty?
Oh, that's a good question. I have not been asked that yet. Did I think it was dirty? I think dirty is a strong word. I think it was like maybe a little cheap. I didn't think it was out of bounds. I just thought it was a little, in the borders. I mean, I do think he knew what was going on a little bit. I think initially, the first grab I could understand. Maybe he thought he was going for the ball, what have you. It kind of went on for a little bit. So that's when it looks like, I just think he's a tough, hard-nosed competitor, and we all have that side of us where we want to win, and we pushed the envelope a few times. I think he pushed the envelope a little bit, but I didn't think it was overtly dirty or anything like that. I think some of it was heat of the moment. He had just gotten hit. Some of it was him just being frustrated, probably taking it out on Brian Burns, a guy he has a history with going back to high school. And so I didn't think it was a big deal at all.
Yeah, I think when we talk about dirty, I think you got to talk about intent. And
Yeah.
I don't think Mac.
Yeah,
I don't think Mac intended to hurt Brian Burns. I think he got hammered, and he was down on the ground. And maybe at first, I don't buy the whole. Michael Hurley brought this up on Twitter yesterday. I think it's tough to say after a certain amount of time that he thought Burns had the football, because you could kind of see, that. You could see the angle that Mac at some point had to realize that he didn't have the football.
Yeah, this is a pile going on like 10 feet away.
Yeah, and I think Mac at that point said, like, as he grabbed his foot, he said, "I'm not letting you get the football." Or maybe he did initially think he had the football, and he said, "I'm not letting you go. I'm waiting
Right.
for my teammates. I'm waiting for my teammates to come in here and tackle you. I'm not going to let you go. That's not going to happen on my watch." So he's grabbing onto the foot. The twist part is where everybody's losing their minds. And I've watched it a lot. And I think that Burns initiated the twist. I think Burns was upset that Mac was holding his ankle. And I think Burns tried to get out of it. And he started that motion. And I think Mac went with it. And that's what happened. I mean, I think Mac is one of the things we've talked about with Mac is his upper body strength and lack thereof, right? Everybody talked about how he's not the strongest guy in the world. He's going to work on his body. I don't think Mac Jones holding the foot of Brian Burns as Burns is trying to get away from him. I don't think Mac from his back is strong enough to initiate that twisting motion and get his body to spin around. I just don't think so. So
I think Brian Burns has been watching a lot of NBA, and I think it was a move that Marcus Smart would be proud of.
Yeah, I don't think
acting.
it's dirty. And by the way, the one thing that really pissed me off today before we move on to the game is this idea. Yahoo Sports, I don't know if it was Schwab or somebody else, but they compared Mac Jones to Ndamukong Suh. Listen, I know 2021 is hyperbolic, okay?
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about hyperbole and all this BS. Do not fix your lips to say that Mac Jones is Ndamukong Suh. Ndamukong Suh has a long rap sheet of doing outrageous stuff, stomping on people, kicking people. It's outrageous that was even brought up. That comparison was even mentioned is ridiculous. All right, let's move on.
Yep.
Patriots-Panthers. Tell me what you feel good about after watching the film, Greg.
Okay, so what I feel good about. Number one, that the Patriots, as opposed to early on in the season when they couldn't even accept gifts from other teams, they now get to the point where they win mismatches convincingly, and especially down at this point, which is a change from earlier on in the season when we weren't really sure what the defense was going to do. Now we know. Look, the Chargers we knew could throw the ball. They didn't run the ball very well. Patriots played really good pass defense. The Panthers run the ball really well. They never want to throw the ball with Sam Darnold. The Patriots shut them down. That's awesome. Now, do we know that they can play the same level of defense against a more balanced offense? We don't know that yet, and we will certainly get that answer probably against the Clevelands, the Titans, the Bills, those
Well,
teams
if
down
Nick
the
Chubb
stretch.
plays, maybe not with Cleveland if Chubb's out. If
Yeah,
Chubb
I
and
hope
Hunt
he
are out, then
plays. I hope he plays. Like I want to see everybody at full go. Like I want to, these are two good teams in the AFC. I want them to go head to head and see what happens. So, I hope he does.
so the Pats
You know,
shutting down one-dimensional teams pretty much. If you can't
yeah,
do more than one thing good, they're going to have your number.
yeah, which is progress for this team since the beginning of the season.
And when we talk
Number
about
two,
defense, I was going to say, when we talk about defense, this guy's name is coming up every single podcast. And
yeah,
gosh damn it, he deserves it because he is slowly but surely becoming a beast on that defensive line. Please preach, Greg, about Christian Barmore.
I mean, he's just every week, like you said, last 3 or 4 weeks, every week he's, in my 3 up. He's just been unbelievably impactful. He's been tremendous. And here's the thing, Nick, that stands out. And I'll just use the pick six as an example of sort of his on-field awareness and things like that. So that whole play, the Panthers are running outside zone. They're going to boot the other way. And basically what you're depending on, and the Patriots run similar plays to this, you're depending on the defensive line sliding with the offensive line because they still have to, respect the run and close down the gaps and stuff like that. And Barmore does that initially, but at some point, and I don't know what it was, maybe it was just sort of Sam Darnold turning his head to the right, but Barmore sensed it, read it, boom, saw that it was going to be a bootleg the other way and closed really fast, and that started the whole play. Darnold was running for his life, then Judon comes on late, and Darnold just makes a god-awful throw instead of throwing it out of bounds, and they get the pick six. That's just, one example, and that's been the most surprising thing, and it's the most surprising thing to people around the NFL, the teams that passed on him at the bottom of the first round, who sort of questioned his football instincts on the professional level. And to me, I can tell you, ever since he got on the field consistently, the practice field during training camp, there's not been one time, preseason, regular season, or anything where I've looked at it and been like, he's not getting this, he's not getting that, he's not seeing this. It's been quite the opposite. It's been actually, he sees more than a lot of veterans do in this defense at that position. And so I've just been completely blown away every week by him.
He is, at times, when you watch him, he's a man amongst boys. And to have that kind of an impact in your rookie season, and we're not talking about like latter stages of the rookie season.
No.
We're talking like, 3-4 weeks in, we're going, okay, this dude is legit. And he is, he's throwing guys around on the field. He's mauling double teams. He's pressuring the quarterback.
He stopped the touchdown too earlier.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold had Christian McCaffrey wide open, and Barmore deflected the pass to save a touchdown.
He's a dude. Like, he is a dude, and he's a player that Patriots fans obviously are ecstatic about, and you should be, because when you see this kind of legitimate impact from somebody who's playing, a 6th, 7th, 8th professional game, that means as long as he sticks with the program, as long as he keeps working hard, he's going to be really, 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 really good. And as Dirty Dave says, Barmore is that guy. He is that guy. And if you look at the snaps, you look at the percentage of play, the coaching staff knows because, every single week he's playing more and more and more. I think he had more snaps than any of the defensive linemen this week on the interior. So they know. Steve Belichick, Bill Belichick, everybody on that team now knows, okay, he's got to play. He's got to play a lot because he and Judon, that combination is allowing them to play some zone and get at the quarterback with 4 guys. That rush of Barmore in the middle and Judon on the outside, it is devastating. absolutely devastating for any quarterback, because if Barmore pushes you on the interior and you start trying to get out of that pocket, and here comes Judon on the edge, if they could find the one guy, if Uche could play against the run, if they could find that one other guy on that edge, this defense, and I think, Greg, you talked about it, the trading deadline, we were surprised. But when you think, it makes sense. The Patriots were looking for a defensive edge. Makes sense, because if you've got Judon on one end, you've got a guy who's better than what they have right now on the other edge, and you've got Barmore pushing that pocket from inside. Man, I mean, that would be a trio that's almost impossible to defend for an offensive line. So it kind of makes some sense. The run defense is better, no?
Yeah, so there was a change this week, and a welcome change if you're a listener to this podcast, where the Patriots went out there to start the game, and they also did this later in the game. No Dietrich Wise as 3-4 end. At times he was out there in sub package. And
I'm laughing because if you haven't listened to the podcast a lot, one of the things Greg's been killing is the idea of trying to fit Wise, square peg in a round hole. So go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, and so the change, and there was another change, which was they basically demoted Davon Godchaux from nose tackle and pushed him out to end. He basically took Wise's spot, and they put Carl Davis in at nose, and it was very effective. We saw what they did against the run this week. There was a series of plays in the third quarter, I think, where the Patriots gave up. So the Patriots come out, the Panthers had the ball 11:54. They come out and they had Dietrich Wise at end, and they had Davon Godchaux at nose. They ran two plays like that. The Panthers picked up 15 yards on both plays, 9 yards, 6 yards. They then put the starting defensive line against the run out there with Guy, Davis, and Godchaux, and the next run went for no gain. I mean, I think the coaches are seeing it now. That was a welcome sight. That is their best run defense. They even put 4 linebackers on the field. It was a true 3-4. That's their best defense against a good running team, and I assume we'll see some of that against the Browns if Nick Chubb can go.
Yeah, they're figuring things out. One last one quickly. Rhamondre Stevenson. The Bill Belichick can't draft thing took a hit, I think, this year. Listen, it's not to say that he was great the prior 5 years, but Greg, when you look at Mac, you look at Barmore, and then you look at Stevenson, that gear that he had on the 41-yard pass play, for a guy his size to be able to barrel through defenders like he does, stiff arm a dude and practically throw him out the club, and then catch that pass and be able to burn through the secondary with a little bit of move too. He's kind of getting me excited, Greg. Got to get me excited.
I know. I hope he, he takes care of the ball and he keeps doing the right things, because, all of a sudden he was a healthy scratch, and I don't think it was just the fumble. So hopefully he keeps doing the right things, that the coaches want him to do, so he stays in the lineup, because when he's out there, I mean, I was blown away at how fast he was this week to go along with his size.
Yeah.
The play that stood out to me, and mostly this was the blocking, but you also saw speed on it, and then the pushing the guy with the stiff arm. The 13-yard run to about the 5-yard line, that was actually one of the few times where the Patriots actually really executed well. Christian Wilkerson comes off the practice squad and blocks two guys on that play. Jonnu Smith did his job. Teddy Karras cut Shaq Thompson. Everybody was doing their job, hat on a hat, and then Stevenson barrels through like a freight train and then tosses the guy out of the club, like you said. I mean, that physicality is just impressive. And if they can get those two guys going consistently, Harris and Stevenson, they got something going. And that's not to say Brandon Bolden was really good and has looked quicker the past couple of weeks too. It looks like he's found the fountain of youth. So good stuff going on in the backfield.
I'm eating crow about Bolden. I was one of those guys, man. I'm telling you. I appreciated his role on special teams, but I'm like, you can't have him be like your second or third running back. Brandon, I apologize if you're listening to this right now, which you're not, but if you eventually do, I apologize. You have proven me wrong. I mean, he has been a much better receiver than I thought he was going to be. He's got more wiggle than I thought he had. And as you said, he's got a little bit of explosiveness that I don't think we've ever seen from him. In Miami, he showed glimpses of it. But I mean, I tapped on the dude and I was wrong. So again, my apologies. Okay, some things that we're worried about. Slow offensive starts, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, they had a span, and I even saw you tweeting on Sunday about this, like it's a disaster or a debacle, and you weren't wrong.
Oh my
There
God,
was a span of four. I went back and counted. There was a span of 14 plays where they had just 7 totally crap plays in there, and that concluded with the strip sack or something like that. I mean, they were literally a Keystone Cops on offense for a while there, and that's fine. I guess the Panthers, when Sam Darnold can't even, he's afraid of his own shadow back there and can't throw it all. But against a good team, you do that, all of a sudden you find yourself down 14-0, and now you're playing from behind. I think this team, part of the reason why they've been successful on both sides of the ball is that, they're basically playing from behind, ahead or even, and so they can still play their game on both sides of the ball and not get out of what they want to do. If all of a sudden they find themselves down 14-0, all of a sudden they take a few more risks on defense, on offense, and maybe it goes the other way. And so those kind of starts, they can't continue. These stupid mistakes, delay of game penalties on the first play of drives, just it just can't go on. I mean, I've never seen that before with this team, so I have to assume it's going to get cleaned up, but woof.
I mean, at least they didn't have 12 men on the field this week. That was the improvement. That start, I don't know how I didn't break something in my house in that first quarter. Maybe it was because I was sitting next to Kelly and she would not accept that if I did it. But man, oh man, that was, maybe a little bit younger Nick would have thrown a remote control across the room, because all those penalties, I mean, it reminded me of, like, I was watching Chicago last night with the 17 offsides penalties. Like, Robert Quinn was forever offsides. Like, they didn't know how to line up at the line of scrimmage. And that felt like the Patriots O-line on Sunday to start that game. They figured it out. They got their ass in gear, but man, that was brutal. You're not really feeling Jonnu Smith.
Nah, he's still going through it. I mean, his calling card is basically get the ball in his hands and watch him make plays. And I don't know about that anymore. I mean, to me, he's the Brandon Cooks of tight ends, where, he looks the part. He looks like an Adonis. He'll make a big play every now and then to keep you captivated. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, do they really make football plays, winning football plays for your team? And, Cooks, like, him on, the reverses and the leaping in the Super Bowl. And, those are the type of plays that I'm talking about. And I see a lot of that in Jonnu. I mean, hopefully it's just part of him just going through a rough stretch with his confidence. And I thought he also had a drop in this game. I thought he should have caught that ball. I thought his footwork on that pass was not good, that he dropped. And so he's still fighting it. And, hopefully we see the best of Jonnu, but so far we have not.
I'm a sucker. I keep taking him with the over receiving yards and some of these same game parlays on these betting apps. I'm still biting for it. Like, I'm still sitting there going, no, he's a really good athlete. They're going to get him the football this week. He's going to have 6 catches for 80 yards. I mean, because, like, how can you not, like, the over under on these receiving yards is like 18 yards for him right now. I'm like, come on, Jonnu, you got to hit me with at least a 25-yard chunk play. Agholor, Godchaux, looking down the road, Greg. What's going on with those two guys?
Yeah, I sort of talked about it earlier, but Agholor, look, if the season ended today, in my opinion, the Patriots would probably be like, all right, Nelson, Davon, it was fun, but we're going to try to do better. I don't think it's worked out to this point. That's not to say there's a half a season left. It could work in the second half of the season. They could just be slow learners, what have you. So, I'm not saying that they are terrible and they won't be back. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if the season ended right now, if I'm the Patriots, I move on and I look for better, including Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver for Agholor, and Davon Godchaux. They figure something out, more interior, get more time for Barmore. Carl Davis has been really good. He doesn't make much money. Byron Cowart will be back, we think, at some point in time. If not this season, next season. So I don't think their long-term futures here look good. Jonnu Smith, however, they cannot get out of that contract. Those other two guys are on 2-year contracts. They can get out of them.
All right, so Patrick Seeley has a question. You think Mac looks mentally fatigued? And I ask you that because one of the things that you have on your worried about section right here in front of me is Mac Jones is treading water a little bit, Greg.
Okay, so this was a point of discussion on Felger and Maz today. I did not say that he looks. Yeah, I did not say that he looks mentally fatigued. I said that he has plateaued in recent weeks, in my opinion. It's also backed up by, some advanced stats. One stat that I like to look at after games, just to get it's a general tool, is on the next gen stats. They have a expected completion percentage based on, how's the coverage, how's the pressure, blah, blah, blah. And to me, it rings pretty true. I mean, so far this season, Mac Jones early on in the season, a 4.9. Anything plus to me is good. 4.9 was really good. I thought it was really good then. Week 2, 2.9, still good. The Saints game that they lost, that no one really played well that game. He was a 0.7. Tampa 4.6. That's good. Houston 8.7, played well. That's when he started, the upward tick. Dallas 8.4, upward tick. Then all of a sudden, the last 3 weeks, minus 1.5, minus 11.7, minus 0.3. So, I'm not saying Mac has been bad or he's trending bad or whatever. I just think he was going up and he's plateaued a bit. That's not to say he couldn't be great this week. He could.
Yeah.
And look, he played 2 really fast defenses in the Chargers that sped him up. I think that has continued this week. His protection hasn't been good. He got blindside hit. That'll speed up anybody. So I understand all that. But, to me, there's no – and I got into the discussion of, look, Mac Jones played a lot in 3 preseason games. He played a lot in training camp. He had a battle going on. He has played, 9 games so far. That's 12 games. That's a college season. And, and you add on the fact that these guys who come straight as rookies go from college ball and bowl games to combine prep and then, into their, draft meetings with teams and things like that, and then into their regular teams programs. He's been going nonstop probably since August, since Alabama's camp. Do I think he might be a little bit fatigued? Yeah, and they haven't had a bye week yet. So none of this means anything other than I'm excited to see Mac get to the bye week, get a breather, reset, reassess, and this goes for the whole team too, and then see what they have for the rest of the season. But I do think that he's plateaued a bit, and I think there's evidence of that.
Yeah, and Patrick Seeley, who brought up the idea, seems like you guys are on the same page. He mentioned he jumped back in and said, he hasn't had any time off. College this summer, the season must be wearing on him. We haven't had a bye week either, as he said. So a lot of the stuff that you just mentioned, he agrees with you. And I think
or a Thursday night. They haven't even had a Thursday night game where you get that 10-day off. Yeah,
it's coming up.
That's another. So they get the 10-day turnaround on Thursday night and the bye coming up. So that's good for the Patriots and that they've held themselves above water.
We got to race through 3 up, 3 down because we've gone much longer than we thought we would. But we're having fun.
We like to talk ball.
So 3 up. Christian Barmore, Rhamondre Stevenson, 2 guys we've already talked about. So if you want to mention Matthew Judon, he again makes the list. He is a consistent 3 up guy this season.
Yeah, I mean, and he was really good, especially in the second half. I mean, so good that I left J.C. Jackson off, a guy who had 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. I mean, I thought the work that Judon and Barmore and Stevenson did was a little bit more individual in nature. And I thought, J.C. made the plays. I'm not saying that, he didn't have a good game. I just was more impressed with those guys.
3 down. Jakobi Meyers makes the list.
Yeah, Jakobi had a really rough one. He bobbled that pass on 3rd down. I have him for 2 minus run blocks. I think he was at least partially at fault on the interception. He had a false start. He had another poor run block. He had a tough time in this game, and he's probably another guy, considering this is the first time he's ever done it, that slot receiver role on this team is a lot to ask for physically, and I bet he's feeling it a little bit.
We talked about Jonnu Smith, so we'll skip him. Yep. Jahlani Tavai.
Yeah, he played 5 snaps. His first snap, I think it was his first snap.
Hold on. You know he had to be the drizzling shits if he played 5 snaps and he made your down list.
Yeah. I think it was his first snap. He was responsible for like the 53-yard Chuba Hubbard catch and run. He completely like dropped into coverage in the wrong area, and it was just like the C part. I was like, come on, bro. This defense has done a good job all day. You come in here and you blow a coverage on your first snap. So I had
well, he deserved it as long as he deserved it.
Yep.
The BostonSportsJournal.com member question of the day. By the way, I saw in the chat somebody ask, why am I not on EEI anymore? That's a question for EEI, not me. BostonSportsJournal.com member question of the day. $39.99 on the annual plan. Not only do you get top-notch analysis of all the Boston Pro sports, if you're a Pats junkie, which you are, then the membership at BSJ gives you access to a ton of video analysis Bedard does on the coach's film and direct access to him in weekly chats. All righty, Greg. Give me a question that the peeps have been asking you.
So the question or statement from Packers Boy was, could they have both the AFC offensive and defensive rookies of the year? Jones and Barmore add in Stevenson. And if Perkins, the injured linebacker from Michigan and safety from Missouri, could be the best draft class in 20 years. All right. The rookies have been good, but let's settle down a little bit. I think that Mac Jones, depending on how the Patriots fare, has a better shot at offensive rookie of the year. Look, it's going to be Micah Parsons on defense. It's his to lose. He's got the Dallas, highlight, television appearances and all that. And he's been talked up all year. And Jamar Chase has been pretty damn good. I think Mac has a chance. If he leads them to the playoffs, and they contend with the Bills, and if they win the AFC East, then yes, Mac Jones should be offensive rookie of the year. Outside of that, I think he's got a tough case, but he's certainly in the mix. I would say both guys have earned the opportunity to be in the mix.
I think you can look at this class and just be excited about it. We haven't seen Perkins yet, and if he could come around and you have Perkins and Judon on each end, and then you've got Barmore in the middle. The secondary, they got to get figured out. I think Miles Bryant has played really well since he's been out there. He's just super physical. He's not a big guy.
Love Miles Bryant.
Yeah, he can lay the wood. So I like Miles Bryant. J.C. Jackson had a great game on Sunday. We should mention him. We didn't mention him. He's been fantastic. And maybe we'll get into this a little bit more, Greg, later in the week when we get ready for the Cleveland Browns. But the idea that this defense has been playing a lot more zone over the last few weeks, kind of an interesting development. And it really started when Jonathan Jones, went out and he got hurt. And then you're dealing with other injuries. So it's kind of an interesting thing they've been doing defensively. But, hey, look, we talked about this. We're not always right, Greg and I, but we try to be reasonable people when we talk about this football team. And we mentioned this, Greg. A lot of people were getting down early on. And, I was probably 5 seconds away from tweeting out something outrageous. But but I held my fingers back. I didn't press send. And we talked about this. We talked about this stretch. And this was the stretch, right? If you looked at it, scheduling, you'd say, okay, well, they've got the Jets. They've got, the Chargers, they've got Carolina, they've got Cleveland, Atlanta. If they can make some noise during that stretch, they will be in this thing. And so far, so good. 3-0.
3-0.
So 3-0. So they're making a little noise. They're finding themselves defensively. They have, I think, found their offensive identity as long as Stevenson and Harris get the head stuff figured out, if they're okay. They're trending in the right direction. So it's good stuff. I'm sure we'll have more good stuff to talk about with the Cleveland Browns. It's a big game coming up on Sunday. We appreciate everybody who spent time with us. He is Greg. I am Nick. We'll be back to preview the Browns later in the week. Everybody have a great night. Be safe. Be good. Till then, we'll see you later.